Hi, this is Math 7, Unit 5, Lesson 6, talking today about subtracting rational numbers. And so we're going to be bringing addition and subtraction together today. So first of all, it says solve each equation mentally, meaning let's go and figure out how would you solve these things if you could. And so if you were to take a look at something like this, this problem here, we recognize we need to get the c by itself, and so that would mean I need to move this guy to that side of the equation. To do that, I'm going to have to do some rewriting, which is really the second step here. It says to rewrite each equation as a subtraction equation. So you can go ahead and do this on your own real quick if you're working on this in class or doing it at home for some reason. And for the rewrite, let's go and do the rewrite part here. So for this first one, we have 247 plus c equals 458. To rewrite that as a subtraction equation, I'm going to want to move this to the other side. So that means I'm going to subtract 247 from this side over here, and for now I'm going to put it on the side of the 458 because I'm just rewriting the whole equation. So it looks like this. I bring the c down, I bring the equal sign down, I bring the 458 down, 458, and then I continue by bringing down my minus 247. So what we've done is we've simply moved the 247 to the other side of the equation so that c equals 458 minus 247. I can do the same thing with the second one, which is c plus 43.87 equals 58.92. So again, we're going to move this over there. So instead of having a plus $43, we're going to do a subtract. So that rewritten as a subtraction problem will be c equals 58.92 minus $43.87. And the same thing for the last one, where we have 15 over 8 plus c equals 51 over 8. Okay, we want to get the c over here, so the c is going to equal 51 over 8, and now we'll move this 15 over 8 to this side by saying it's a subtract 15 over 8 there. And so that's how we rewrite those addition ones as a subtraction equation. Okay, and that gets us a little bit into what we're doing today. We begin with 6.2, activity 6.2, which is called expressions with altitude. It says a mountaineer is changing elevations, so he's going up and down a mountain. Write an expression that represents the difference between the final elevation and the beginning elevation. Then write the value of the change. The first one is done for you. So we're looking at two things here. We're looking at the difference, right here, the difference between the final and the beginning. And then we are looking at the change. So two different things. As this guy is going up a mountain, whatever that might be, whether the person is going up, we're going to be changing in a positive direction, or if the change is going down, we're going to have a negative change depending on what's happening with that mountain climber. All right. So for the first one, it says, for example, he had a beginning elevation of 400. Let's just go ahead and pretend that the mountain's here. So he's here at 400 feet. And the final elevation was up here at 900 feet. Okay. So the difference between the final and the beginning, what they want us to do here is they want us to go ahead and because we're subtracting, kind of the pattern for this project or this lesson is this. We're going to put the final value first and we're going to subtract it from the beginning. That's going to be the order in which we write these equations down. So we're going to do the final, which is 900, minus the beginning, which is 400. So 900 minus 400 gives you 500. Which is going to be our change, and that's going to tell you whether it was an increase or a decrease. In this case, it's a positive change, 500. So that difference between here and here, this difference right here on this first one is 500 feet. That's the difference for what's happening. Now, because this guy was going from the 400 to the 900, that's going to be a positive difference. If, and we'll get there in a second, this had been a starting at 900 and going to 400, the difference would still be 500, except it would now be a change, and the change would be a negative 500 there, okay, because we're going down the mountain on that side there. Let's take a look at some of these here. So we have 400 and we have 50. The difference between the final and beginning, the final is 50, so I'll write that first, and we're going to subtract 50 minus 400, okay? And when you do 50 minus 400, all right, we can think about this being, we talked before in our last lesson, when the signs are different here, we can find the difference. And so I can switch it around, 400 minus 50 if it helps you out, but I need to keep the one with the greater sign. So it's going to stay negative. So 400 minus 50 is 350, but I'm going to keep the negative sign out in front. So if that helps you to rewrite it like that, you can, or if you can just do it in your head and say, well, it's 400 minus 50, but keep it negative, that's fine too. You have to decide what you're understanding, what you're seeing, and how quickly you can make that jump there. So, but the setup though is the final minus the beginning. So 50 minus 400 is negative 350, right? So if I did that using a calculator, same idea. If I did it here, I would do 50 minus 400, and that gives you that negative 350 value there. Okay, let's look at the second one. Our final is negative 120, and our initial beginning was a 400. So we're still finding the difference. We're still going to subtract negative 120 minus 400. Now in this case here, if I turn this into an addition problem, or I would notice that the signs are the same. And when the signs are the same, I find the sum. 120 plus 400 is 520. I find the sum and I keep the sign the same. So my difference is going to be 520, but we are going down. We're going from a positive place to a negative place. This guy's going down the mountain here to go from there to there. Just like this one, 400 to 50, we're going down the mountain. When I look at this next one, we can see we're starting at 200 feet below elevation, or negative 200 elevation, and we're going up to 600. So we can tell that this is going to be a change. It's going to be positive, going from a negative to a positive number. So for my difference though, I'm going to start with the final, which was 610, and I'm going to subtract the beginning. Well, my beginning is a negative 200. So make sure you include that negative there, right? So now I have 600 minus a negative 200. When I subtract a negative, it means add the opposite. So that's going to be 610 plus 200, which is going to be 810. And that's going to be a positive change again, because we're going up the mountain, and that becomes positive, positive. This next one, we look at the final, which was negative 50, and we subtract from the beginning, which was negative 200. All right, so again, this is add the opposite. So I could rewrite this as negative 50 plus 200 if I chose to, which is 200 minus 50, which will be 150. And that's going to be a positive, that's going to still be a, yep, where am I at? Yep, still be a positive value there, because the change is positive. Even though we're ending up at a negative position, the change is what we're looking at here, and that's positive. So again, to draw a little picture here, right? It's like let's say that that 0 is here. That's like kind of sea level, 0. But he starts here at negative 200. He's going to go up to negative 50 there. So we know that that difference from here to here, the difference between here to here, is 150. That's true. That's the space between those two distances, 150 feet. But that we know we're still below the surface, but the change is still positive because we're going up. So it's a positive change. We're not saying that we're in a positive place, we're just having a positive change there. Okay? Look at this next one here. We have the ending spot, final, minus the beginning. Okay? And so in this case here, we can look and say we're at negative 200 and we're going to end at negative 500. So we look like we're going down the mountain again. So this becomes add the opposite. So negative 500 plus 200 becomes a negative 300 as a value there. That's our change. We're going down 300 feet. And here we're at 0 and we started at a negative 200. We made it back up to the surface, I guess. And so our change is a positive 200 there. Okay, so sometimes it may help to draw a little picture to visually see what's happening, whether you're going up or down or what's going here, right? Negative 200 to 0, we're going up the mountain there, so I get a positive change. And that's the idea behind that. Let's take a look at the next step. We're going to scoot past the are you ready for more, and we're going to look at does the order matter. So let's find the value of each expression, all right? So 3 minus 2 is 1, right? But a 2 minus 3 is negative 1, okay? So we're saying, okay, well, I have a 1 and a negative 1. What's the difference here? Well, it looks like I'm just changing the order of the numbers around. And when I'm changing the order, I get the same like numeric answer, but one's positive, one's negative. Let's see what happens here. Here I have 5 minus a negative 9. So that means add the opposite. So 5 plus 9 is actually 14. And negative 9 minus 5, that means add the opposite. Sign's the same, I find the sum and keep the sign the same. So when I flip these guys around, the same thing happens. I have the same numeric value there in a sense, 14, 14, but one is positive and one is negative. Okay, negative 11 minus 2. We turn this into add the opposite. So negative 11 and a negative 2 is a negative 13. And then 2, we add the opposite, becomes just positive 13. Here we're going to add the opposite. All right, and so we add the opposite and we end up with a negative 6, and a positive 3 is a negative 3. And here we add the opposite. And so that becomes a negative 3, and a positive 6 is a positive 3. Okay, so every time we're changing the number position around, we just end up with the opposite value for our solution. Okay, so negative 1.2 and minus 1.36 is going to be a 2.4 there, and this is going to be also a negative 2.4. And over here, if I add the opposite, this is 3.5 and negative 2.5, which leaves you with just 1, and then negative 3.5 plus a 2.5 is going to leave you with a negative 1. So what we seem to notice here is that the values are going to be the opposites on both sides. It's the same number, but they're subtracted in a different order, and in terms of the values, we end up with the opposite value, 1 versus a negative 1. Okay, so that's what you notice there. So that's what happens when you change that there. So when we look at something like a minus b equals x, right, any value there, if I change the order and I did b minus a, it's going to equal negative x, and that's the idea there, and that's shown with the numbers 3s and 2s just like that. Okay, so let's move over here. This is our summary real quick. And so for our summary, when we talk about the differences between two numbers, we mean subtract them. So difference means subtract them, okay? And typically we subtract them in the order they are named. So keep that in mind. We'll do some practice with that today as we go through the homework stuff too. In general, the distance between two numbers, a and b, on the number line is a minus b, the absolute value, that's distance. So distance between two numbers is always positive. Doesn't matter the order, it's the distance between them is always positive. But difference can be positive or negative depending on the order. Those are two words there to keep in mind, distance and difference. Distance is always positive and difference can be either one.